SEO growth hacks. One of the most important growth hacks to understand is actually knowing what the algorithms are doing and what's happening. One of the biggest ones is E.A.T, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Google announced to the world that they're going to be punishing sites that don't actually have anything in the way of those three things. Again, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So if you are building up your About page and have a ton of information on there, you're going to be surprised that a lot more people are visiting because Google is trying to promote more stuff to validate your brand, your expertise, and your authoritativeness. The reality is you have to put out stuff that is relevant for your niche, but also make it understandable to those that are coming to your page that you actually know what you're saying and talking about. Update your About page and watch the numbers climb. 3 awesome tools for understanding and finding your competitors. Number 1, SEM Rush. SEM Rush has free searches and allows you to see every little bit that's happening within the site, whether it's social media, whether it's their top pages, or where they're getting a lot of their do follow links from. Number 2, AlternativeTo. Now, this isn't always the case if you're selling a product that's a B2C type of product, but it allows you to actually get a feel if you're B2B. Number 3, SpyFu. SpyFu is fantastic. Plug in your website, plug in your competitors' websites, and start to understand who are the other people in your space. Number 4, SimilarWeb. SimilarWeb has been around for ages. It allows you to see what's happening within your space. And honestly, it's a great tool. It's a competitor of SpyFu and the other ones I've mentioned. Number 5, Ocean.io. You get 25 free leads to essentially see who has written similar content across your different pages, and it allows you to essentially scrape the competitor list up to 25 different companies. Really badass, really cool company. How to learn really fast within growth hacking and marketing in general. One of the best ways is going out to events. I used to go to 2 to 3 events per week over the span of 2 or 3 years because I wasn't able to learn anywhere else. Events that are hosted on Meetup and also Eventbrite are great places to find unique learning opportunities that are free. The reality is a lot of people just want to give away cool shit. I do that all the time. Look on Facebook events. A lot of people are also advertising free events where anybody can show up and learn. I used to go to events that weren't related at all to my industry, whether it was big data meetups or anything related to machine learning. I just wanted to get new and interesting tools. One of the fastest ways to learn is going to watch other thought leaders express how they built their business, how they managed to scale something that's related to what maybe you want to do in the future. Go there, network, make friends, and be seen. Do 2 to 3 a week for the span of 3 to 4 months and watch how much you've learned. Growth hacks for social media. Why organic reach is down significantly. The reality is in the early days of social media, you had a significant reach. We're talking 5-10% of your total followership is actually engaged or seeing your content. There's multiple reasons why you're not seeing the amount of clicks, likes, and potentially reactions to a lot of the stuff that you put out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and any other social circle. 1, there's too much content out there. Everybody's a creator. You're a creator, I'm a creator. So it's a flooded marketplace. 2, unfortunately, they want to make money off of ads. In order to have a company page have the same reach it used to, you're going to have to put out lots more or you're going to have to pay for it. 3, unfortunately, the reach of a piece of content that used to do really well all comes down to what's happening at the current time. Is it the same type of content being put out and whether or not your marketplace actually wants to engage? Optimizing your images on your website. If you are not compressing your images on your website and it takes 10 seconds for these things to load, 1, nobody's going to hit you on mobile, but 2, it's never going to end up on the first few pages of Google search engine results pages. The reality is you have to compress your images. So if you run a WordPress site, either use TinyPNG, which is a great tool and it's free, or use Smush. Smush has a freemium option that allows you to compress all these images. There's a ton of other tools that allow you to do this if you're not on WordPress. One is Kraken. Kraken is a great tool. It can be a little pricey, but it's worth it. Cloudflare. Cloudflare is great to essentially organize everything in your root folder that is an image and have it compressed before it loads, using essentially a CDN, content delivery network, to have all of your pages load across millions of servers as opposed to just one. SEO tools to measure site speed. Site speed is one of the biggest indicators when it comes to understanding whether or not you're going to rank. If your site takes more than 3.5 seconds to load, you will never end up on the first page, I promise you. So there's a ton of different great tools to allow you to check the speed of your site. 1, Pingdom. Pingdom is one of the oldest and most reliable tools for checking your site speed. 2, Gmetrics. Plug in your website into Gmetrics, give it 30 seconds, and you'll actually see what your site speed is and how to fix it. Number 3, Google Developer Tools. That's inside of Chrome, and you can actually see what elements of the page is loading at the same time, and also understand why your page is loading so slowly. Updating these really unfortunate errors, and often it's pictures, is the difference between getting found on page 1 and never being found at all. Understanding Google's algorithm. One of the most interesting things that's happened with the interface of search is understanding where ads are sitting, all the way down to where the actual growth is happening on the organic side. So if you go through and do a Google search for anything that's related to your market, your niche, or just something that you enjoy, you'll first see 4 ads, which, okay, fine. Go past that, all you see is pictures, fine, okay. After that, it's answer snippets, which makes sense. That's organic growth, but you only see the first one. Then people also ask is the next one. Then after that, it's videos. So videos is obviously YouTube, and that's owned by Google. And then you actually start seeing the organic growth. We're getting closer and closer to a zero-click future, which means invest a fair amount of time on different platforms, maybe even TikTok, maybe more of YouTube. Usability and UX. One of the most profound things that most people don't understand is longer landing pages convert better. I know it sounds fucking crazy, but the reality is, if you look at ClickFunnels, one of the first really good conversion tools that just got acquired, by the way, they created these mile-long parallax, meaning one-page websites that allow you to understand a product being offered, and then eventually by the time you reach the bottom, hopefully you're convinced. The reality is Google is trying to find pages that have a ton of content that's hyper relevant for a search term or user intent. Make really long landing pages and watch your conversions continue to go up. The reality is you need to make sure that you're adding different elements of that page, whether it's embedded video, images, infographics, or add in, of course, the CTA. That's the call to action, how we convert people at the very last second. Why user experience matters on your page. If you don't have a page that's built for skimmability, nobody's going to be on your website and Google's not going to allow you to rank. Using anything in the way of the eye test or the first glance test is a great indicator of whether or not your site is going to be mobile friendly. First, we want to make sure that we're breaking up paragraphs. There's no reason to have mile-long paragraphs. Anything more than 4 lines in a row is a waste of time. Nobody's reading it. The reality is, if you look at Backlinko or Neil Patel's site, everything is skimmable. Make sure to use lots of images. Break things up. Use memes. I fucking love memes. Use different ways to engage people that are actually coming to your site. Make sure that your site is responsive on mobile, and the way that we do that, if you're using Google Chrome, is right-click, inspect, and then at the very top, changing the settings of what device is actually viewing your website. You can see how it looks to a mobile visitor, because let's be honest, more than half of your website traffic is probably going to be on mobile. In Q1 of 2019, Google admitted that 49.8% of all searches across the United States ended in a zero-click. What we're heading for is a zero-click future. The reality is Google is in business to serve ads. So the first 4 results that you get are going to be ads. So we have to get more clever. The idea is that we either are using site schemas to make sure that we have a structured data set for Google to more easily define what our site or what our individual page is about, or we really want to go after short answer snippets, which means short sentences, skimmable pages or articles, or give something in the way of real value. Don't create articles for the sake of creating them. Create something that you would determine somebody that might want to buy or examine this more thoroughly is going to get something out of it. Attacking using your competitors as leverage. One of the hardest things that we all have to do at some point is build a competitor list. You need to know what they're doing in order to outrank them, understand what their best content is in order to outrank them on that, but also understand their pricing structure. What are they doing that's giving them traction? One of the best ways to outrank your competitors on SEO is to see where their best do-follow backlinks are coming and start creating either profiles or asking for, hey, a competitor blog post on the same site. Our goal is to essentially match our competitors across every area that we possibly can so that over time, we're doing a leapfrog on everything that they've been doing. There is a reason that there are competitors. It's because they're doing something that works. Find out what that is and start scaling it internally on your own. This is one of the most misunderstood elements of SEO and growth hacking. Growth hacking content. Content is one of those things that I absolutely love. I think that's why every marketer got into marketing. The reality is the old school traditional mindset of how long a blog post should be is in the days of journalists and branding and strategy. The reality is most blog posts need to be 2,500 words plus. There's tons of data out there that basically show the longer the blog post, 10,000 words plus, the more social shares it gets, which is a big indicator in Google's eyes as to social proof and whether or not people actually engage with your content. The other side of it is in terms of ranking on LSI, latent semantic indexing, you need to hit different areas of a topic inside of that article. So the goal is long form content always wins. Show examples. Go down every single pathway that you possibly could and make sure that it's clear and it's skimmable. Growth hacking digital strategy. This is one of my favorite principles. It's called the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. We've all probably heard this before, but it's really simple. So think about it like this, and it exists everywhere. 80% of the alcohol is drank by 20% of the population. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your salespeople. The reality is we have to think of our content, our pages, and basically everything that we do in this 80-20 kind of range. We have to realize that not everything is going to go as planned, and so putting forth a ton of energy, hoping, fingers crossed, that everything will pan out is ultimately how we actually figure out what works. And we're able to scale things that work by knowing this. So the reality is if you look inside of analytics, see which articles are ranking really well. Those articles that are, go in and add more content, update them, and make sure to continue to link to those because those are your top 20%. Keyword density versus LSI. These days, it's really challenging to explain to people the old days of what SEO used to be. When I used to search for something, I would do 1 or 2 keywords. So in the old days of shopping for jeans, I would type in jeans. Nowadays, it's not that, it's far from it. If I'm looking for a pair of jeans, I type in jeans, acid wash, boot cut, 30 by 33, I don't know, my favorite brand, Levi's. The reality is nobody's searching for jeans in a single word. So we have to make sure that we're hitting lots of different word bubbles of the same concept. So this is what latent semantic indexing is. It's a really fancy phrase, LSI, for synonyms. So we want to make sure that we're hitting different synonyms. One way to know what types of synonyms you need to include is either using keyword density tools or keyword checking tools, or just seeing what's at the very bottom of the search engine results pages and making sure to add in those questions or at least those specific searches. What the hell are site schemas? Site schemas are basically a structure that allows Google to understand this is all of what is inside of your individual page, your post. Is it a recipe? Is it a review? It's helping Google understand and document what you're actually serving up to potential visitors. The reality is this is why WordPress changed this whole layout from the classical layout to Gutenberg. We need to make sure that we are outlining every single individual section of text so that Google understands, oh, this is an H2, meaning a title section, or these are bullet points, or the post itself is actually a review. All of these things add up to better searchability, and that means you need to really dig into site schemas and figure out how can I make sure that Google understands what is on my site, what is on my individual articles, and how they should go about parsing it out. How to fight the Google algorithm and win. The reality is you have approximately 2 days to get a ton of engagement early on for your videos. So our goal is to make sure that we allow us to be really searchable, but also put this video in front of people that might actually want to watch. That means going into Facebook groups and dropping a link to your most recent video inside of the group. That means going to Reddit groups or subreddits and essentially answering these questions with your video. Core is a great atmosphere for being able to answer questions with video as well. And by the way, it takes up a huge portion of all the answers. The goal is, how can I answer the most amount of questions using one singular piece of content? This will drive more traffic, more engagement, and that will indicate to YouTube whether or not your video is worth spreading around to other people. How to find anybody's email online for practically free. There are so many great tools that allow for great data enrichment these days. You're wasting your time if you're Google searching and trying to find email address for blank or email address for so-and-so. Some of my favorites, Snovio. Snovio is a great little tool that allows you to take anybody's LinkedIn profile and hopefully find their email address. Find That Lead is a fantastic tool, and they actually give free credits every single month. Hunter.io is the standard. Everybody knows those guys. Go check them out. You can use them for a while until they say, hey, you're using too much for free. Rocket Reach. Rocket Reach is a great tool. I think a lot of people miss the opportunities by using the freemium model on that too. Adapt.io. Adapt.io is a really nice tool that allows you to find within every single company the right person to go to. There are tons of tools, and if you do a Google search, how to find anybody's email address, you'll find dozens of websites that do it for you. How to find time to grow your startup. The reality is not everybody's able to quit their current day job and put full-time effort into their startup. But the reality is setting a schedule that allows you to actually complete work either on a weekly or at least on a couple of days, couple of hours here basis is where it's at. There is zero chance that your company will scale if you only put in 1 day a week for the next 2 years. The reality is we have to start setting time for doing this. If you have a favorite television show, then you're fucking wasting your time. The reality is you have to spend time, energy, and effort to scale. And most people aren't willing to do that. So my goal is to make sure that I take 1 day out of my current week in order to focus full time on my desired outcomes, my startup that I really want to grow. When I built my company Architecture Quote, I worked every Sunday from 11 until 8. See what you can do in terms of shaving off 1 day a week and come back to me and tell me how it worked out for you. How to get really good at digital marketing. Marketing is all about systems. Understanding one system really well allows you to apply all the learnings to other systems. If you understand content, how to write really long, great, informative blog posts, you can start to learn other things within digital marketing. So the idea is if you can write great content, you can start to understand SEM. SEM opens up the doors to a little bit of the technical marketing, so now you can start opening up more and more opportunities within SEM. So search engine marketing, that's Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads. If you start learning those, then you could start learning some of the integrations and maybe outbound campaigns. All of these things are cyclical. Everything in marketing is kind of interconnected. There is no one island within marketing. So if you can understand one area really well, start learning that area and it applies to all the other systems. SEO 2.0. SEO 2.0 was coined by Brian Dean, but the concept is really simple. We want to build content around intent. The whole concept of what is somebody searching for prior to finding your website. What is it that they want to look for that your solution, your article, your website provides an answer to? This is really powerful when we start actually building out long form pieces of content because we want to make sure that we're citing a lot of really interesting statistics. We're putting examples in, but we're also making it skimmable. It is incredibly powerful to make sure that people are on your website for longer. So that means long form content always works better. Showing examples, bullet points is super helpful, as well as a table of contents. Within WordPress, you can actually download multiple plugins that allow you to get really creative with some of the really simplistic table of contents. Tools for checking for duplicate content. One of the biggest problems that people often run into is putting out duplicate content on their own site and on others. The reality is Google looks to see whether or not you've put the same lines of text across different websites and your own. There is absolutely no reason to have the same text anywhere else on your website. So my favorite tool for this, SiteLiner. SiteLiner identifies what tools or what areas of your website are identical. That way you can tweak, you can change. Now the reality is sometimes you have to use the same pictures, but for the most part, everything on every single page should be unique. If we're focused on offsite stuff, use Copyscape. Copyscape is a fantastic tool that allows you to see if you're guest posting and you have another post on your website, did somebody copy all of it? It's a really easy tool, plug in, and it's cheap. SEO growth hacks. The diversity update within Google's algorithm. The diversity update shook the SEO world not very long ago. The reality was you could rank multiple times for the same keyword. So the idea, which actually makes a lot of sense, that Google said basically, have you ever done a Google search for something and the results were multiple pages from the same company? They don't want that anymore. So what happens is you might end up losing out in the long run across the same keyword for multiple pages. This is why we have keyword cannibalization, and this is why you should diversify a lot of your pages. Also, the losers that actually turned out to be a big mistake on Google's part were a lot of the people that were hacking software. So when people Googled Adobe, they started finding a lot of the people that had cracked Adobe software. It's constantly changing and evolving, but be aware you can only rank once for one keyword. Two different types of backlinks. The first type of backlink is a do follow. Do follow is good. It's for SEO juice. You want to be able to show site authority and that reputable, high authority, and niche related places are pointing to you. This is essentially the stuff that allows you to scale, build more authority, and then rank for more keywords, obviously driving up traffic in the process. The other type is no follow. No follow isn't bad, it just means there's less value. And often a lot of these larger publishers aren't giving do follow links out because they don't want to hurt their street cred or site authority. The reality is we want to capture a grand kind of landscape of high value, meaning high authority sites that are related to your niche, that might actually be local, which is also really helpful. But the goal is to get super granular on the amount of backlinks that you have and focus on do follow for the meantime. Three great tools you probably aren't using or using for something else for finding great articles to write about. There's this whole concept of social proof. The idea is, let's say you're new in town or you're on vacation and you're walking down the main promenade, and on the left, empty restaurants. On the right, packed restaurants. You assume that the restaurants on the right are better because there's more people at them. This is the concept of social proof. We can use Reddit, we can also use Quora to find what people are more engaged with and then actually write something similar to it. So if I put in a key phrase or something related to intent inside of Reddit and then sort by the last 30 days, these are the most popular posts or the most popular pieces of content over the last 30 days within my niche. You can also do this within BuzzSumo. So these are articles that everybody's engaged with that have a high rate of being engaged with, high value. So make an article that's somewhat similar to those and you'd be surprised, you'll probably get a lot more engagement too. 3 awesome tools for getting better at SEO and making sure that you can check your SEO. Number 1, not everybody knows about it. It's called BombStat. BombStat allows me to make sure that I have a robot.txt file, and it also allows me to locate the sitemap. Sometimes, depending on the plugin or the tool that you're using, sitemaps can be hidden, and that is how most search engines actually go about finding which pages are on your website, which is obviously helpful. The next one I would say would be Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog has been around for a while. It's actually owned by a marketing agency, pretty clever, but they have a freemium version that allows you to crawl 500 pages and see what is missing on those individual pages. My last one, my favorite one, Ahrefs. Ahrefs has a really great tool, and honestly, I'm in there every day. I'm able to check backlinks, do follow links, no follow. I'm able to see referring domains, what I'm ranking for on an individual basis. There are so many great tools out there, but the reality is, pick one that you can afford. 5 great tools for sequenced outbound email outreach. It is impossible to get the world to know about your newest product, your newest article, without doing anything in the way of email. Maybe not impossible, but really fucking hard. So I want to show you a couple of great tools that allow you to do this almost automatically. My favorite is probably Ninja Outreach. Ninja Outreach allows you to discover, and then using their extension, you can actually enrich the data so it finds every email address, social handles, and all this great stuff. Check it out. BuzzStream is a close second. They do almost all the same stuff as Ninja Outreach. It's just a little more expensive. If I'm focused purely on email, I'm gonna go with Mailshake, Woodpecker, Lemlist, or Snovio. I gotta tell you, my favorite as of recent is Snovio because it just does a great job. It allows you to do all these things and set sequences based on action. If they don't open the email, send a certain email. Or if they do open it and don't click, send them a different email. Really great tool, check it out. Content Strategy 101, why listicles work. It is so challenging these days to rank for anything, and the idea is really simple. We want to aggregate as much information as possible and allow people to engage with it. One of my favorite hacks that I do on every company that I work with is build podcast lists of any vertical or any niche that they're in. So if you're a roofing company, hell yeah, let's make a list of the top 20 roofing or construction podcasts. If you're a software as a service and you focus on CRMs and sales, let's make a list of the top 50 sales podcasts. It's incredibly easy to dig in and do all this research. And by the way, when you post this, reach out to those companies and say, hey, not for nothing, I wrote about you. Come check out our article. Please link to it and share it. And you'd be surprised how much traffic these things get. Build these listicles and articles because they totally work. Outbound Hacks 101. One of the most important things once you set up your process for doing an outbound hack is making sure to clean the emails. It is imperative that we don't blast a ton of emails that get bounced because Google will essentially look at us like we're scammers. The reality is I have numerous Google-based Gmail addresses, and I send out 20, 30, 50, 100 different emails a day across numerous domains. My goal is to make sure I use a tool like Clear Out, Never Bounce, Zero Bounce, Debounce. These are all really great tools for basically eliminating the emails that are no longer working. This allows you to make sure that you're not getting your domain flagged and therefore always ending up in the spam folder. Make sure to clear up every single email group and list that you are about to send out on a blast for either amplification or potentially an outbound sales. SEO growth hacks. What is user intent? User intent is basically what is the user searching for in order to find your results. Is it a landing page that sells your product? Is it a money page that actually allows them to convert on that product? Is it something in the way of a blog post for discovery? All of this helps in terms of being able to rank for the right key phrases so that you're actually able to drive revenue. It's so important to be able to write towards what people are asking because nowadays the zero-click search is taking over. Half of all Google searches end in 0 clicks. So if we can answer questions and on the off chance people want to learn more, which hopefully they do if you write good content, then we need to make sure that we're breaking up the individual landing pages or at the very least our articles so that there's enough short form answers and directives in there so that people can find the answers and then continue on to your website. Intent-based searching is super important. Where to go to learn more about growth hacking and get more growth hacks in general. There are so many places online where people are just volunteering free information, giving it away. And there's no way to digest it all. It's out there in the ether. So here's a few really great places to find great growth hacks and also find people that you can follow and continue to build your own expertise. Number 1, TikTok. Follow your boy, TikTok, right? Number 2, Slack groups. Online Geniuses is probably my favorite, but if you do a quick Google search for Slack groups or go to our recent blog post on Clint Marketing, we have a whole list of Slack groups that are baller and really good for learning something in the way of growth hacking. The next one is Reddit. There's tons of subreddits on growth hacking, marketing, and digital marketing in general. Black Hat World and Warrior Forum are really great areas where you can learn from the experts, but you can also find cheap resources to get all this crazy shit done. SEO growth hacks. Why every website should have a multi-language tool. These days, if you search for anything online, chances are you're going to see that it's really competitive in English. Most of the internet is in English. The reality is you have to have a language tool that allows you to basically split apart the different pages. One of my favorite tools, XT Translate. XT Translate is an open source tool that allows anybody on WordPress to basically create multi-languages of all the same existing pages. One of the little caveats of this, make sure that you're not just running everything through Google Translate. Find a native speaker to go through and check all the languages. The reality is there's a bunch of other tools out there. Some of the other ones, WPML, really great tool for WordPress. Another tool after that, I would say Polylang. Polylang is a great little tool that allows you to click and select what language you want to use and surf on that particular website. So you're able to serve tons of people outside of just your own local area. What do Vox, BBC, and the Washington Post have in common, and dozens of other publishers, by the way? They're all generating AI content, and this is hundreds of stories. The Washington Post last year admitted they had published 800 stories without a single human touching them. AI-generated content is the future. Think of Persado. Persado is a company that is relatively new, out of Silicon Valley. They have a ton of employees, and they're working with Chase Bank. They are essentially automating the AI testing, which is not the same as A/B testing, to figure out what are the headlines that everyone will convert on immediately. It's working. Conversion form hacks. Reducing the number of form fields from 10 down to 4 increases the conversion rate by 120%. Stop asking people for unnecessary information. In most cases, all you need is a first name and an email address for obviously getting something in the way of a real nice conversion funnel going. The more information you add, the more people are going to leave your form or form abandonment. If you get it down to 4, all the way down to then 2, you're going to see a jump in conversion rates by 160%. The reality is stop asking for so much information that isn't relevant. Once people are in your funnel, continue to ask for that information. One of my favorite hacks is using Clearbit and frictionless forms. Frictionless forms allow you to essentially enrich the data as soon as somebody puts it in. So they put in an email address, it automatically enriches to guess the first name, last name, company, potentially phone number. It's a really cool hack, check it out. How to convert visitors to your site without actually having them convert at the moment. One, using Facebook's tracking pixel or LinkedIn's tracking pixel, you can hit these people through retargeting campaigns way down the line, which is super interesting. Google Ads, great way to do display, great way to hit them on different mediums. Consider that a great option, but it's paid. Albatross. Albatross is one of the coolest platforms I've ever seen in terms of a B2B solution that allows us to guess essentially what users are coming to the site based off of their IP address and the closest building to it. We could essentially reach out to these people if they do convert on a guide or on some type of tripwire content in order to send them a message as soon as they visit the pricing page. Because why else would you check out my pricing page unless you were really serious about converting? And there's a bunch of other tools like that. Lead forensics, lead feeder, and many others. Conversion rate optimization hacks, or CRO. CRO is essentially how we're able to optimize a page in order to increase conversions, speed, and essentially traffic. One of the biggest hacks is making sure that you're running a CDN. A CDN is a content delivery network. Instead of having everything live on one server, you can have it live across multiple servers, and it's cached. The idea is that multiple servers are feeding the experience much faster. Use Cloudflare. The next one is essentially A/B testing. A/B testing to see what version of a page converts better. Did you know that longer pages convert 40% more than super short pages? It's counterintuitive, but it works. The tool that I use to do a lot of A/B testing is Google Optimize. Google Optimize gives you 5,000 impressions for free a month, and that's just enough to make one scientifically proven statistic that says there are more users converting on this page because it looks like this versus users converting on this page because it looks like that. Really cool hack. Every piece of content that you make should be a downloadable piece of content. The reason for that is you need to use this as tripwire content in order to grab email addresses to put people in a funnel to sell them later. Additionally, every piece of content that I produce is broken up into multiple parts so I can reshare those elements on social media. I also want to make sure that I'm pushing these things across different groups. The reality is people are not utilizing the content in its greatest form, which is downloadable, online in the form of a blog, push through a Pulse article on LinkedIn, and across different sections of your social media. This is something that we all can do, and we want to reuse this stuff because the reality is good content takes a really long time to make. Email signature hacks. Email signatures are the highest clicked area within any email campaign these days. I will not click on a link inside of an email, but I will click on the signature and hey, go to our website, check us out. Check us out on social media. I click on those. There are a number of really great tools that allow you to build this and essentially grab that and put it inside of an HTML editor to get the signature for free. It's a really great way to get clicks inside your emails and also allow people to engage with your content well after you've published something and well after the email's already been sent. Why exit pop-ups work. Exit pop-ups are a fantastic way to grab people just as they're heading off of your website. You have a very limited amount of time in order to convert somebody into either a regular visitor or put them into your funnel. If you're not trying to grab somebody just as they're opening the door to leave, you're losing out. There's a number of great tools that do this. One of my favorites is Hello Bar. Hello Bar is a great tool. It has a free option that essentially sits above. You can have a full screen version of it. Another version is Convertful. Convertful has been around for ages. They had a really great lifetime deal not too long ago, but it's a great way to convert people just as they're about to leave. This is how you build a great mailing list, and this is how you get people into the top of the funnel. What do all these brands have in common? Uber, Lyft, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Johnson & Johnson, Taco Bell. They're all ditching their CMO, meaning there's no longer a chief marketing officer inside of the organization. Why is that? Most of these large organizations are starting to realize that you need to be able to show proof, evidence that whatever campaign, whatever you've designed is actually working. We're talking about data. Don't be the marketer that's a storyteller and a branding strategist. You're not going to be able to prove that in the future. The reality is people want to tie data to everything. And as we get further and further along, you're going to be able to do that in a lot of cases. So don't be the future branding strategist. Be the future digital marketer that uses hardcore data in order to prove their points. Gamifying retention. One of the greatest hacks I've seen in a really long time was essentially adding an element of emotion to somebody leaving or unsubscribing or walking away from a company. You'll see lots of versions of this, but this is my favorite. This is uninstalling a program that's honestly not necessary, but it's a bear, and the bear is crying. I thought we were friends is what the bear has underneath him. It's obviously what he's saying. And as you uninstall, the bear is actually removing bear fur from hard drive crying bear tears, bear's girlfriend stops calling, buffing claw marks off the motherboard. So there is a high rate of reinstalling because people feel bad for this cartoon bear. What can you do inside of your own business to reduce churn by adding an element of playful emotion or gamification of people's emotions? Growth hacks for salespeople. Number 1, Streak. Streak is a Chrome extension that allows you to see when people are viewing your emails, when they've opened them. And even more interesting is when they forward emails to other people. You can see multiple open rates across an organization. What that means is that if somebody has forwarded my sales email to a bunch of people inside of an organization, that means they're interested and I need to get on the phone. Number 2, Calendly. Calendly integrates with your Gmail calendar and with any other calendar you'd like to use. I'm able to set up appointments without doing the back and forth. Does Monday at 2 o'clock work for you? I don't know, how about fucking Tuesday, 11:30? This back and forth is so unnecessary. Let them pick the appointment and it bubbles in a time slot inside of your own calendar. The last one is Zoom conferencing. Using Zoom conferencing, you're able to set up meetings super quickly, and it integrates directly with Calendly as well, so you're able to set up a video call and get people sold immediately. How to get more subscribers on YouTube using an email signature hack. Adding the !sub_confirmation=1 to the end of your YouTube link inside of your signature will automatically prompt them to select OK when they click on your YouTube video link. So essentially they come to a page and they are asked if they'd like to subscribe, and most people are like, okay. They have no idea what they just accepted, which is essentially more subscribers for you. It's a great hack. How long should your trial be for a SaaS product? SaaS is software as a service. The average trial is about 14 days. The reality is most people don't convert until day 40. You're leaving 80% of your potential conversions out in the open and on the table. The problem is most people only put email sequences up to the second week because they assume nobody's going to convert after then. There are so many different data points that show most people are not ready to make a buying decision within the first 2 weeks of seeing your product. You need to continue to hit them throughout the entire process of the timeline. Every SaaS product is a little different, but as soon as you get somebody in and using the product, they're 10 times more likely to buy. So continue to segment your people and continue to hit them across 1 month, 2 months, a year. You'd be surprised when people actually get back into your funnel and are ready to pay just out of the blue. How to generate the best content by using your competitors' content. Crazy. This growth hack is essentially called the skyscraper technique. It was created by Brian Dean of Backlinko. Fantastic blog, by the way. Essentially what the skyscraper technique is being able to measure all of the best blog posts or best piece of content that your competitors put out. Think about it like this. If my competitor writes the 10 best laptops of 2020, I'm going to write the 50 best laptops that you need to buy right now in 2020. The reality is it's taking your competitor's best piece of content and essentially pulling it out of the game, and you outrank them. The way that we do that is longer posts, internal and external linking, having a table of contents, and obviously trying to make sure that it has something in the way of some SEO benefits. I do a longer, more interesting version of what they've already created. Think about taking the best player of your opposing team out of the game and then making him play for your team. Why every blog post should have something in the way of a social proof button, meaning a marker that measures the amount of people that have engaged on social media platforms. It's really simple. The concept behind social proof is a psychology that when we see other people liking something, we're more apt to like something as well. So think about when you go on vacation and you're walking down the main promenade of a city you've never been to. On the right, you see restaurants. On the left, you also see restaurants. And in the restaurants on the right, they're completely empty. The restaurants to the left are packed. You inherently pick the ones that are more packed because you believe the food's better because more people like it. It's the same reason why you should have people noting inside of something you can count, people are engaged with your content, because it means that other people have enjoyed this, so you might as well. Jonah Berger's 5 steps to virality. These are things that if you insert into your content, you win. The first one is social currency. Social currency is stuff that we share to make us sound cool or look smart. Think of I fucking love science. Everybody shares that stuff because people want to be perceived as brilliant. The second one is triggered. It's actually stuff that we've experienced, but we didn't know that everybody else experienced too. So this is like shower thought memes. Emotion is the most powerful one. This is why every large brand wants to tie their messaging to some type of of emotion, whether it's joy, love, sorrow, anger. All of these work really well. Public is an interesting one. It's sometimes super niche. You can essentially do things that are related to a certain group of people. In Washington, D.C., we talk about how bad the traffic is. In Copenhagen, it might be about biking. Practical value is where I live. Practical value is stuff that people can immediately use right away, like this video. And the last one is stories. Everybody loves narratives. Tell a story from a beginning, middle, and an end, and you win. Why user testing is bullshit. The Hawthorne effect is essentially when somebody is being observed, they act differently. Unfortunately, when we run focus groups and user testing, people are aware that someone is watching, and there are partial elements that we are psychologically primed to engage with. One is essentially that we want to do good by the observer because we're incentivized to be there, or incentivized to do the task. The Hawthorne effect came from factory workers, and the concept was if we put more lights in the building, people would be more productive. The reality was because there were observers watching people on a product line, essentially they worked faster knowing that somebody was watching them. As soon as the observers were gone, productivity went back down to where it was prior to the experiment. The reality is people know when they're being observed and act differently. So don't spend a ton of money on user testing and focus groups. Do one at a time visitations with your ideal customers and ask them the questions that you think you would want to be asked. Two of my favorite tools for user testing and user recordings, Hotjar and Inspectlet. Inspectlet and Hotjar are great tools, and they are GDPR compliant, that essentially allow you to record everything that a user does when they visit your website. This is how you uncover if there's a problem with your form. This is how you see when people are confused and trying to go to a certain button or can't click on something that you thought worked. These are really great tools that on a weekly basis, you only get a certain number to see, but the reality is the learnings from these are impossible to even dissect. It's so valuable. It slows down your site a little bit, but be aware that recording users as they visit your site is going to give you vast more insights than even asking them would. It's a great tool, Inspectlet and Hotjar. Top 5 reasons that startups fail. Number 1, good timing. The reality is you have to have a product that suits the market at the right time. You don't always need to be the first, but you need to come out at the right time. There's a reason that Airbnb and Uber came out when people were looking to make extra money during a really shit economy. Number 2, team and execution. If you have the right people working for you, it's very easy to scale. The problem is it's tough to find good talent. Number 3, this is the idea outlier. Is this a unique idea, and is there something keeping you back from actually capitalizing on it? It's a really unique one. Number 4 is probably my favorite, which is the business model. Are people willing to give you money for what you're offering, and is it something that's seamless and easy and there's not 50 steps to get there? Money exchanges very quickly and you're able to scale. And the last one is funding, and this is a heartbreaker because you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't have capital to make it work, it doesn't matter. My name's Taylor Ryan. I put out a ton of content. Like and subscribe. I run a growth hacking agency in Copenhagen, Denmark. Make sure to subscribe to see more of this stuff.